Hello, I'm challenging myself to try and make a new video every week because I have a bunch of free time. So, I got some ideas in the work, but if you have any ideas, give me some. Hate night identity theories because they all suck. So, I'm gonna go over what I believe are the top 5 biggest night identity theories and just go over why I think they have major flaws and why I think are the biggest are Ascor, Azrael, Carol, Des, and Rudy. So this isn't going to be like a deep dive into every theory. It's just going to be like the basic summary of every theory. The general points that most Carol Nighters, for instance, will agree on. I'm going to start this off with what I think would be the least controversial one to shoot down. Asgore 9. Okay, it starts off the same way the vast majority of night identity theories do. Asgore lost to Des, feels bad about it, trying to find Des. Put a pin in that. So to find Des, he's working with Carol, Chris. That's pretty much the theory, as I understand it. I don't know if there's a lot more evidence. The biggest issue with this is that it seems like he's going to be the main boss of Chapter 5. And, I doubt the last night fight is going to be in Chapter 5. And that kind of seems like a really hard emotional climax to come back on with 2 more chapters. Like, if our final night fight's in Chapter 6, for instance, Toby only has to come up with 1 more fight that's more climactic. But if it's in Chapter 5, he has to come up with 2 more, and I think that would be very difficult. So, rating this, I'm giving this a C tier. I can picture cool and emotional moments, but I can't really picture a good story. I do hope Asgore, gets his aura back. He was so cool in the neutral ending. And then, like his son and the person boning his ex-wife, he took all of his aura. And now in Deltarune, he's like a stalker incel? So unless Chapter 5 makes him cool, he's just gonna be the incel of Deltarune. Next up we got Azrael Knight. Starts off the same way as Asgore Knight. Lost Des. We're gonna carry on Chris to get her back. A good boon to this theory is that the Knight is associated with stars due to being a dark star elemental monster. Creature. And Azrael is associated with stars in both Undertale and Deltarune. One point that people say that I always disagree with is that Knight's attacks are similar to Azrael's attacks in Undertale. And my thing is, there's only so many ways to make a hard but fair attack. I don't think Garson and Sans are related because they both share that attack where you gotta spin in a circle. You know what I'm talking about. And it seems like when Toby wants to make 2 characters seem related, he, instead of making the bullet pattern similar, he just reuses the bullets like Sans and Papyrus, Asgore and Toriel, and yeah. Next, people say there would be a really good thematic connection to Undertale, which it's true. But outside of some meta-narrative stuff, in Chapter 1, this game seems to want to be separate from Undertale. So I don't really know about that point. Azrael also uses swords like the Knight, even though he uses them substantially less. But it's a point, and I don't really have a way to dispute it. As far as I know, these are the main points of the theory. C tier. I can picture cool and emotional moments, but it kind of feels like we're turning Azrael into Bowser, We're fighting him at the end of the game again, Carol Knight. First off, Carol is working with Chris to find Des. Oh, what a unique start to a night theory. First of all, biggest boon to this. Carol actually has visual elements that resemble the Knight. And I know the Knight's a shapeshifter, but what's the point of the Knight having the specific sign they do? unless their design is actually meaningful. And if their design is not meaningful, I think that would just be kind of annoying. It's just like, okay, yeah, I have very few elements to base this design, our theories off of other than the design. So turning the design into just meaningless, I don't think that'd be that good, personally. Both her husband and her daughter are associated with stars, so it's not that big of a stretch to say she'd be associated with stars, and she uses swords. But this has a big problem. Technically, Asgore had the same problem, but it's more fun to list it here because more people believe in Carol Knight. In Chapter 4, she couldn't have made the fountain. You could be like, well, there are tunnels in churches, but why would this not be foreshadowed at all, okay? Like, if Toby wanted us to think about that, he would include some line, some reference to tunnel. And what's the real kicker for me is that this problem doesn't need to exist. The scene could have just as easily been written to go church, holiday house, Castletown Rain, then Dark World, which would fix the problem, which makes me think Toby is either intentionally trying to mislead us from it being Carol, or it's not Carol because of the timing. Which, I don't like the idea of being intentionally misled, because it feels too FNAF-y. And FNAF is not a very good story. It kind of sucks. See, dear, I can picture some cool, emotional moments. But the story seems to be leading us in a different direction. Ah, shit, the pin fell. Okay, the idea of the knight trying to find Des makes no sense. How does the knight killing a TV man find Des? How does the knight making a titan find Des? How does anything the knight has done result in the finding of Des? Everyone says it, and nobody explains it. It just feels like they're trying to get two birds with one stone. Also, the knight can't just be trying to do the prophecy. If they were, they'd just run around hometown speed running it. They do it in one weekend. If they were just trying to make the roaring, they'd just stab the ground a couple of times. You know? The knight's motivation has to be more complex than simply finding Des. Because if you want to find Des, you do go to Des' room, make a dark world, and interview the objects about when was the last time you saw Des. And then, okay, where is she going? And then go to that place. And then so on and so forth until find where she last was located, which should be where she is now. And any other thing makes no sense. So the knight's motivations have to be more complex than just the knight's trying to find Des, or do the prophecy, or do the roaring. It genuinely has to be more complex than that. Okay, moving on to Death Knight. Oh, who's the voice in the code? Sure, it could still technically be Des, but the voice in the code seems to be happening in real time as the chapters are released. Now, it seems to be like a meta thing. I can picture some cool emotional moments with this one, but it seems to go against what's set up for the character so far. And I know I just got through the biggest Knight theory in like a sentence or two. But the issue is, like, Death Knight probably has the least holes in the regular version because no one agrees on it. Like, most Carol Knighters agree on it. Most Asgore Knighters agree on the general premise. You talk to 10 Death Knighters, you're getting 10 different versions of Death Knight. It's going to be basically impossible for me to debunk all of those. And that's it. That's all the Knight theories. No other Knight theories exist. None at all. Rudy Knight. I'm going to try to be kind to Rudy Knight. I feel like I've talked to a lot of Rudy Knighters that are very annoying and say things that, like, it would be so emotionally impactful. It would have so much story potential as opposed to the other Knight theories. And I'm not entirely sure what they mean by that, but it just feels kind of conceited to me. Just, I think my theory has more potential because I like it. more. Well, yeah, of course you think that. You like it more. But I have yet to hear someone like actually explain why they think it would have more potential. I'm going to go, because I have a bit more strong feelings about this theory in particular, I'm going to go in sort of a flowchart-like fashion. Starting off with the question, is Rudy faking his illness? Now, I'm going to answer no to this first because that's the shorter branch of the flowchart, even though I believe it's a more fringe opinion the Rudy Nighter scene. If he is faking his illness, why? What would be the point to gain out of that? You could say it's to hide the fact that he's the Knight. But Carol and Asgore, who are definitely part of the conspiracy, are not doing a very good job concealing themselves. Toriel knows about it. Granted, she is close to both of them, but it just doesn't seem like something people are trying to obscure. Asgore's acting suspicious, Carol's acting suspicious, Chris is acting suspicious, so what's stopping Rudy from also acting a little suspicious? And between a healthy Rudy and Carol, most people would be suspicious of Carol because Carol acts like a stereotypical villain. She's over here doing evil stuff, whereas Rudy would, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me that he would fake it, because it seems like the other people in the conspiracy are doing enough to sort of distract from the heat that Rudy would be getting if he wasn't sick. The first part of the flowchart, Rudy is sick. Okay? Is the armor real? If the armor is real, or it's something that can be done to anyone, it's either real or it's like a magical spell that can be cast and put onto anyone, why not put Carol in it, or Asgore, or even Chris? Because we are shown that physical strength transfers between the light world and the dark world in Chapter 1. Susie is stronger than Chris and remains stronger than them in the dark world. So when putting Carol in, who's very strong, or Asgore, who, if we're scaling off of Undertale, is also very strong, make the Knight significantly stronger? If the Knight we fought in Chapter 3 was a dying man, imagine what Carol or Asgore could have done with that spell or armor on. You know? If the armor... going back to the flowchart. Armor isn't real. It's a manifestation of Rudy's sickness, so it can't be put onto anyone else. Why does the Dark Shard remain the same? Why does it not become like a bacteria or a cancer cell or a virus or a fungus or whatever Rudy's nondescript disease is when it goes back to the light world? I haven't watched the hour-long Rudy Knight video. I'm going to react to that on a live stream after I post this, because I think that would be fun and maybe give this video more views. I don't know, it's just something I'd like to do. I feel like I have to give this one F tier. I can picture cool and emotional moments, but it just makes no sense to me. I feel like I may be being a bit hard on Rudy Knight, but I just feel like I haven't heard a good argument for it. And a lot of Rudy Knighters just are very annoying to me on a personal level. I opened this video with the line, "I hate Knight identity theories because they all suck." But that's not the whole truth. As I've touched on in the mid part of this video, a lot of Knight identity theories are predicated off of assumptions that the Knight's, why is very simple. And, but it isn't. And I think this is an objectively more interesting question. So every time I click on a Knight theory video, I'm not getting explained how or why they're doing what they're doing. I know I'm just going to get some guy trying to explain to me why Carol's the Knight, or why Papyrus is the Knight. And I can picture cool emotional moments with anyone being the Knight. I really don't care who the Knight is, because it would ultimately have cool, emotional, fun moments. I can picture cool and emotional moments with anybody being the Knight. Most of the time it's just swapping whether Chris, Noelle, or Chris and Noelle will be the person receiving these emotional moments. And I I don't really think that matters. I think what really matters is why the Knight is doing what they're doing, how they're doing this. If the Knight isn't lightning, how do they become a little ball? How does that make any sense? And I think there's a far more interesting question than just who's the Knight. Because I don't think that who the Knight is really matters.